When the right people come together at the right moment, when they care almost as much about winning as they do about each other, they can become the best of the best.
Welcome to the best soccer show, the best soccer show in the whole world.
Here we go, boys and girls. We are live. It's the best soccer show, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV, NASNradio.com. Jason Davis, Jared Dubois, with you on Wednesday nights. Games all over the place.
I'm so far behind the times right now, dude.
All right, look. Let's set the stage a little bit. My man Jared is working the late shift, working the graveyard shift now at his job, which, you know, brings a little bit more money for the fam. I know it's a big step in your career, and he so he sleeps during the day. He has to get up in time to do the show. Yeah. We get online to get set up for the show. We get Jared about 10 minutes later than normal. He goes, I just woke up. My alarm didn't go off. So not only do we have slightly cranky Jared Dubois, we have husky voice Jared Dubois.
I'm not the type of guy that wakes up in a good mood. I'm not. It's not that I'm not a morning person. I'm not a morning person. I'm not a nap person. Anytime I wake up, I'm not a happy guy.
No, I'm the same way. I completely feel you on that. So tonight we're gonna be fighting through Jared Dubois, cranky Jared Dubois, but hopefully that's not a problem. We got plenty to talk.
I'm not cranky at you. I'm just cranky at the world.
I understand. We have the phone lines are open 201-430-2378. As always on Wednesday nights, taking your phone calls. We can take your calls about MLS, about U.S. men's national team, about U.S. women's national team. If you want to talk about Pia Sundhage and her leaving the team, that's kind of a big deal in U.S. soccer circles in the last week or so. NBC ratings came out. Jared, I know we mentioned this on Sunday, the day after the game. We've got ratings for that now. A lot of talking coming out of that kind of debacleist number that we have out there now. But there's a lot of stuff going on tonight. And I mentioned we're not the headliner tonight. No, it's not during the season. We're always up against an MLS game. Tonight we're up against MLS. We're up against CONCACAF Champions League. It's just coming fast and furious already. New York and Kansas City in about the 65th minute, and it's 2-0 Kansas City last time I checked. Big clash at the top of the East. Kansas City trying to extend that lead. Red Bull every time they start to look good, Jared, they take a step back, and I don't know what that is. Is it Hans Backe? Is it a team mentality? Is it something in the culture? Is it a curse? What is it?
I don't know. There's also something we said about this is a team that's constantly being tinkered with. Rafa Marquez comes back. Is he in the back line? Is he in the midfield? Okay, you're going to play in the midfield. That means you push Dax McCarty out wide. When Dax McCarty, you can make the case being New York's MVP of the season so far, and now is playing in a position outside of what has made New York good. So right. There's a lot of tinkering going on with New York, and I'm not sure if it's always to the benefit of that club and its consistency.
We talked about how deep they were. They signed Tim Cahill. That's a big step, and it makes them a very talented team. But if you don't know how to juggle all of those pieces, and you mentioned all pushing Dax McCarty out wide because Rafa Marquez comes back. Kenny Cooper gets relegated to the bench for a while for Sebastian Letou. Joel Lindpair was kind of in and out of the lineup, and he had been one of their most consistent performers over the last couple of years. So unless you can properly juggle that talent, and it is a significant amount of talent, unless you can figure out the perfect I don't know configuration, I guess there's going to be problems, and they're not consistent. I mean, it's not that they're not good or can't be good. They can beat anybody, but they're not consistent, and it's eventually going to come back to bite them, because if you're going to get to the playoffs, you got to be consistently good to get all the way through.
And let's not count out the fact that Sporting Kansas City is still playing very well. And one thing you like to see in this team, if you're a Kansas City fan, is CJ Sapong back on the scoreboard.
Yep.
CJ Sapong, obviously they lost Teal Bunbury out for the season. A lot of conversation around what's going on with CJ Sapong. Is he going to be back to that role that we saw at the end of last season? We know that CJ Sapong ended last season strong. Kansas City's going to need to lean on that player. And obviously also Kai Kamara getting a goal in this game as well. You love to see those two guys on board. If those two guys can really get hot for Kansas City, that's a best case scenario for them.
Both of those guys with goals tonight, and Sapong's goal was very nice. It was a shot off the ball, or was it a free kick? I'm trying to remember. I'm sorry, I saw this right before I came on the. Sapong's goal came back out off a rebound, and he had a nice little turn on top of the ball. Basically, no space to turn. The ball was right underneath his body. Nice turn, nice goal scorers goal type of situation there for Sporting Kansas City. The other games going on tonight in the MLS play, Columbus and Chivas USA. I'm not sure what time that kicks off. Jared, you have a time? Is that on right now? 0-0 in that game. Apologies. And then the two CONCACAF Champions League games. Your boys are in Puerto Rico, go up against the Islanders, who have been their nemesis in the Champions League last couple of years. Took a reserve squad. Talk to me a little bit about that team, Jared. What do you expect out of those guys? No Donovan. Who else is no Beckham, obviously?
No, actually, Donovan did make the trip. Beckham and Keane did not make the trip. They did send Landon Donovan. They also sent Wilhelmsen. So this is a bit of a ramped up team based on the last time these two teams played in the first meeting, when the Galaxy probably needed more of a result. Now they got a little bit of a cushion. They send a mainly reserve team and maybe kind of non-star team down to Puerto Rico again. They send Donovan, who's trying to get back to fitness. They send Wilhelmsen, who's obviously trying to get a bit of chemistry with this team. So I think it's Bruce Arena really kind of hedging his bets right here. He's obviously saying that the end of the MLS season is his top priority. And maybe he's also saying that obviously the kids got the result done the first leg. The kids got a big win against Puerto Rico at home. He sends a lot of the same players, and if you're a reserve player for the LA Galaxy, this is a kind of a big kind of a pat on the back right here. You did the job the first time, and I trust you to do it again.
It was a very nice performance. I remember that game. Now it was a nice performance from the kids at home against Puerto Rico. I don't know that anybody thought they would come out and play that well. And they kind of stuck it to the Islanders. And it was there was a talk about a little bit of a revenge for what the Islanders have done to the Galaxy in the past. I don't know about all that. But now they go to Bayamon and they have to get it done on the road. Are they going to be up to that challenge? It's not that Puerto Rico is one of those Central American locales. It's 0-0, by the way, in the 32nd minute of that game as we talk about it. It's not like when it's one of those Central American locales with things being thrown from the stands and very private fan base. They get some people there. It's still a baseball island for all the talk about soccer coming up. But
I'm watching the game right now, and the stands are pretty empty.
It's still a long trip, though, for those guys, and it's completely out of their comfort zone when it comes to travel and everything else. I mean, we're watching the UEFA Champions League games today, Jared, or keeping an eye on them if we're at work like I am. And, the difference between that tournament and anything that happens in CONCACAF is, you hop on a plane, you're at your destination in an hour, and it's 4 countries away. In this situation, the Galaxy are flying to the Caribbean, and that's a 5-6 hour flight. I don't even know.
Right in there, and you got to figure there's probably a adjoining flight somewhere in there too. I don't know if many flights are going LA to Puerto Rico direct.
LAX to San Jose. Direct. San Juan. Sorry, it's not an easy trip.
See, this is where you and I differ. I can't name a city in Puerto Rico. I just don't care.
I said San Jose. And I think that's Costa Rica, and San Juan is in Puerto Rico, and that's gonna get me. That's probably gonna give me some flack for mixing it up. But regardless, it's not an excuse.
A saint is a saint.
It's not an excuse that MLS teams shouldn't go and get the job done, but it is just a point of difference between what we see on television, the glitz and glamour of the UEFA version, versus what happens in the CONCACAF Champions League. And take what happened with RSL in Panama last night. They had to wait until the 90-plus minute. I mean, it was
93rd, I think it was.
93rd minute to get a goal from a PK goal from Alvaro Salvario to pull out a win and get 3 points in that game. They were knocking on the door all night. I watched some of that game, and not only do CONCACAF Champions League games away in like Central America look like they're being played behind this thick pane of glass because the sound is muted from the stadium, and the announcers are obviously sitting in a closet in LA or whatever. It's grainy. The quality is not that great. It looked like it was being played in slow motion, and I don't know if that was because RSL was just tired by the time I turned it on, and they must have been. It was the 90, it was the 85th by the time I got around to watching it, or what. It's just everything was in slow motion. They finally get the penalty, and save their campaign, because now they have to beat Herediano at home, I think, in order to even have a chance to advance.
I think part of that is if Harry, it depends on how many goals Herediano puts up tonight, right? Correct?
I believe that's the case, yes. So they'll have a chance to, assuming Herediano wins. I mean, if Herediano doesn't win, it obviously changes the dynamic. Yeah. But if they win and everybody expects them to, then it's on RSL to take care of business at home if they want to advance. And like I said, only group winners advance this year. It's a change. We've got Seattle and Maratón coming up later on. It'll be after we go off the air. That game will start. Who knows?
But if you're RSL, Jason, RSL is just grasping at something to galvanize and rally this team around right now. It was this big CCL loss that kind of started this stumble and started this slide, along with the Olave injury. I think that played a lot into it as well. But they need something right now to really push this team into the last leg of the Champions League, into the final dog days of MLS. They need something, and this could be it. This really could be the thing that pushes their season back the other direction, because they've been sliding for some time now.
Right, absolutely. So here at Herediano, assuming a win, be on 9 points. RSL's on 6 after 3 games played. Herediano will be on 9 if they win that game against Toro on the 25th. They don't play tonight. They play on the 25th. So that's next week. Because you have odd pairings, whatever. Seattle plays Maratón. They're at top of that group. They look comfortable there. I don't think that there's any real concerns that Seattle won't take care of business and win that group. LA on 6. Puerto Rico's got no points. If LA wins this game, they're pretty much locked up. I don't know if that's qualification. Pretty much locked it up. The other, so we're looking at a CONCACAF Champions League that could be successful on most fronts.
But I don't know did you say how TFC was doing?
TFC is second in their group right now. They're not going to catch Santos Laguna. That's not going to happen. So they're probably out of it at this point. Houston's tied with Olympia on 4 in Group 3, down a goal in goal differential. So everything to play for there.
If you're a betting man, you'd say maybe 3 of 5 MLS teams make it through likely.
So that sounds about right.
I think four have a chance, but more likely maybe 3.
Yeah, one of them is probably going to stumble or has a chance to stumble, so the odds are pretty good. 3 out of 5, which is not, obviously not terrible. Now, the issue with this tournament, as always, is you get through the group, you got to go play the knockout rounds in the early part of your next season. What is your team going to look like? Are they going to be in any kind of form? That kind of thing. And it makes it difficult for MLS teams to win the tournament. We saw what RSL did a couple years ago. Great run, fantastic, blah, blah, blah. Very, very hard. I'm hopeful. I'll admit, though, Jared, that I'm not as gung-ho about the Champions League as I was 2-3 years ago. Maybe even last year. I don't know. Maybe I'm kind of beat down by the fact that there just is it is so difficult for MLS teams to seem to get their stuff together in the group stages, and then when if they do make the knockout rounds, it's so difficult.
Do you think MLS scheduling is part of the reason why it's hard for you to get into it?
Probably. That's probably part of it as well. I mean, obviously tonight you've got a top of the table clash in the Eastern Conference going up against a Champions League game, and
well, I think part of my issue with it is the schedule, because if you look at the team I support, if you look at LA, if I had the team that's playing right now, playing in that Champions League semifinal, the Galaxy has a chance to win the whole thing. Because they're playing right out the gate into a semifinal. And obviously, it's against TFC. I mean, they got to get the job done against them no matter what time of year it is. But still, I would prefer to be playing beginning of the season against some of the middles of CONCACAF, like a Toro or a Puerto Rico Islanders, versus when you're playing Santos Laguna in a final 4 weeks into your season.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's the thing. It makes it incredibly difficult. And unless MLS switches their season, it's just not going to happen that it's going to come at the right time for MLS teams. It's just a fact of life. So if they're going to win it, they're going to have to climb uphill to do it. Is that a reason to switch the season, Jared? I don't think so.
I don't see that. I think weather and NFL is more of a reason why you switch things.
Way down the list. And yeah, there are arguments out there. All right, let's take a break. First break of the Best Soccer Show Wednesday Night Live edition in the books. Jason Davis, Jared Dubois, Best Soccer Show. Said that already. NASN.TV. Boop-a-doop boop.
Together they formed a band whose names and deeds were to be retold throughout the centuries.
Every week, the Knights of the Supporters Shield, four of SB Nation Soccer's best American soccer writers, Jeremiah Oshant, Kevin McCauley, Ryan Rosenblatt, and Zach Woosley, assemble at the roundtable to analyze the latest news and events from around Major League Soccer. It's informative, it's entertaining, it's biased demagoguery at its best. It's the Knights of the Supporters Shield, and it's only on the North American Soccer Network and NASN Radio.
Hey guys, the North American Soccer Network says we have to give them 30 seconds about what our show's like.
Surely we can accomplish this in 30 seconds, right? I mean, that's what we're good at.
Shouldn't be difficult.
Brevity. We need brevity.
I think that's a key. I think somebody should spell the name too. It's like it's a C. C-U-J. Yeah, there you go.
C-U-J-U. Yeah,
you got it.
R-A-D-I-O.
Thank you, Richard. Really much appreciated. Yeah, Radio Suju on the North American Soccer Network and on NASN Radio.
Soccer Made in Portland airs Tuesdays and Fridays on the North American Soccer Network.
Get your weekly Portland Timbers fix with interviews, analysis, and the latest team news with Kelly McLean and Michael Orr.
Every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, we'll break down the previous weekend's game.
And then again on Friday afternoons, join us at 3:30 p.m. Pacific for the last word before the game as we preview the Timbers' upcoming opponent, including interviews with some of the best soccer journalists from around the country.
That's Soccer Made in Portland, live twice a week at NASN.TV.
I'm Garrett Cleverly, co-host of MLS in 30 with John Arnold. Check us out every Tuesday and Friday as we break down the latest in MLS. We bring in the best beat writers throughout the nation, the guys that know the teams better than the teams know themselves. We also go over the best blank of the week and best blank of the weekends, and we break down the latest hot gossip, which is usually just typical MLS news. Check us out every Tuesday and Friday, only on NASN Radio. Now back to more NASN programming.
Jason Davis, Jared Dubois back on the Best Soccer Show. You cannot make me laugh right when we're coming back from the break. That is not fair.
Sorry, when I come up with genius, I have to type it.
These things are difficult to do as it is, but we're back on a live Wednesday night edition. Phone lines open as always. If you guys have things you want to get in on, topics of conversation include MLS, national teams, both men and women, various things. 201-430-2378 is the phone number. I mentioned the NBC rating number there, Jared, and I do want to get to that. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot for us to add to the discussion, but I think it's absolutely noteworthy that MLS goes on NBC and the rating isn't very good. But before that, I think the bigger story from an MLS context, and it's actually much bigger from an American sports context, is the impending sale of AEG. Happens to own the Galaxy, happens to own Home Depot Center, happens to own a bunch of other stuff, the Lakers and some other teams, and part of the Houston Dynamo still, most of the Houston Dynamo still, until the sale to the Houston Rockets owner goes through, which I'm told is happening. I'm told that that's happening, and therefore the Dynamo will not be part of AEG's sale. But the price tag on this deal, Jared, from what I'm seeing, is $5 billion, which is absolutely astounding. They own a lot of stuff. And this is Anschutz, and this is one of the godfathers of American soccer, modern American soccer, one of the godfathers of MLS, an OG owner. What do we make of him getting out of the sports business? Because that's essentially what this is.
I think that MLS and soccer in general in this country is losing its security blanket. Let's be honest here. I mean, similar... It reminds me. I thought of a joke earlier today. I'm not sure it's a good one, but what do MLS and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air have in common?
What do they have in common? They both have an Uncle Phil.
They both have a rich Uncle Phil that takes care of them. Like that's what the two have in common. To be honest, and
oh my God,
would MLS still exist? What?
You've come up with the perfect analogy. That MLS is Will Smith is the character in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, who has to run to his rich Uncle Phil when things get rough in the neighborhood, when the teams are full, contracting and
started making trouble in my neighborhood.
Man, this is so unbelievably perfect. I don't even know where to start. This is this. Oh, I'm loving it. We gotta fill all the holes. So.
Is NASL Carlton then, or is that Jazz?
God, who is Carl? Carlton's got to be like one of the kind of square
the Lakers actually, because that's the actual son, like the one that's meeting all expectations.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, you said the security that the MLS or American soccer, whatever, is losing its security blanket. And that doesn't go just for MLS. Anschutz has been involved in women's soccer a lot as well, professional soccer. But specifically to MLS, do they need it anymore? Does MLS need the security blanket anymore? Do they need Phil Anschutz sitting there with his billions saying, you know what, if things go to hell again, I'm going to come in and swoop in and buy up a couple teams and we'll be okay? Do they need it? Are we past that?
I think MLS is actually past that point, and some people are gonna get mad at us for saying this or anything like that, but I think a lot of credit that goes to Don Garber. If you're happy with the financial security that the league has right now, and I'm not saying that the league is making money hand over fist, but it's secure, and a lot of that goes to Garber, and even more of that goes to Phil Anschutz, if we're being honest, because not only did he step in and buy these teams when he had the chance, he found new owners for them eventually. So that's probably the biggest legacy of Phil Anschutz. Not just that this is a guy that made one of the most successful teams in the league in LA Galaxy, changed the game by starting the whole DP process, by bringing Beckham over here, but the bigger legacy of Phil Anschutz is finding good ownership when ownership bids failed.
Well, I think all of those are gold stars for Phil Anschutz as a soccer guy. Like you said, building the Galaxy into something and being willing to sign off on the Beckham experiment and buying up teams or taking control of teams when it was absolutely needed. And you mentioned Don Garber and his the work he's done to help make the league more stable. I think people in general just distrust authority figures, and Don Garber's an authority figure, and he's came from the NFL, and there are a lot of things about him that people don't seem to like, that he is business first. But it's very difficult, I think, for anybody to make the argument that MLS is not 1,000 times better off with Don Garber. You met Anschutz is a big role in that, with Don Garber at the helm, than they were when he took the job. And maybe that would. Do
you think Robert Kraft was going to come in and buy two teams? Robert Kraft's got a lot of money and supported soccer in this country, but I don't think he would have gone to that extent. The Hunts, let's give Hunt some credit as well. The Hunts come in, own a couple. Well, yeah, give Lamar Hunt some credit as well. And even give the Hunts credit enough that selling KC off eventually to a good ownership group. If we're going to give Anschutz the credit to selling to ownership to good people, like in DC, they have a nice ownership system they sold off in DC. I think that you got to give the Hunt some credit here as well. But I think Anschutz's legacy is above and beyond anything else. But the biggest fear for me as an LA guy, as an LA fan, is this going to be a wholesale a fire sale of a $5 billion whole company, or is it going to be fragmented out into different parts because there may not be a $5 billion offer in there? And how is Galaxy going to be fragmented into that?
No, okay. Well, let me just put some of your fears to rest. I've already read, okay, and it's believe reports if you want, but I've already read that Anschutz has and the group, his larger group that actually owns is umbrellaed over AEG, has no interest in parceling out AEG. They're going to sell it lock stock.
No, but wouldn't you say that too? If you want to make it as a big sale, but if that sale doesn't come along and they still want to get rid of the company, you're going to start looking into fragmenting it.
Perhaps, but you're speaking of a situation where they don't have enough interest for the entire company as a whole, and I'm already aware of people milling about and getting those fancy notebooks or whatever they're called. I completely botched that word, but whatever.
iPads.
No. The book that actually tells the story of AEG, where they stand in terms of their market share, all of those financial things that I don't understand at all. These are already starting to go out, or they're being inquired about, and there are people willing to step up and at least explore the idea of paying $5 billion for AEG.
Yeah, I think I heard two names in particular, and I apologize, I don't remember their exact names, but one was the owner of Oracle, and this was reported by ESPN. I think it was by Darren Ravel. Darren Ravel. Yeah, the owner of Oracle, and then also the other one is a partial owner of the LA Lakers that's already kind of in the setup. And I think a big part of this is for people in LA like myself, it's not necessarily about the Galaxy. A lot of the talk in LA is obviously about the Lakers, Staples Center, and the future of Farmers Field. That's the big one.
Right. Yeah. Obviously, for ESPN's purposes, for Darren Ravel's purposes, for most of the country sports fans, the big thing that comes out of this is what does this mean for NFL in LA? Because if Farmers Field,
the Galaxy is linked to that too. If it's Farmers Field is going to be a future thing in LA, the potential for LA Galaxy to maybe move downtown one day, play in a bigger stadium, is connected to that Farmers Field deal.
I know that it's actually conceivable that LA could get big enough and important enough that if there was a stadium downtown and it sat, 65,000 or whatever, they may be going bigger, that LA could conceivably move into that. Now, we don't want to do the whole football sharing thing again if we don't have to, but if it makes sense for a club that outgrows a 27,000 seat venue, then I understand. But I almost don't want to think about it because we're still in the baby steps period of this. I mean, as much as we think of MLS as being in its second generation, I guess you would say, it's still got a lot of growing to do. I don't want to go down that road necessarily.
Well, I think one thing that will be lost in this, no matter what's going to be lost in this, is that the fear is obviously, right now, LA Galaxy, AEG, obviously owned by a soccer fan. And that's one of the things that comes across. The best patrons of soccer in this country at an ownership level have been the people that have been fans of the sport. And now with selling this, you're likely going to sell it. Maybe you'll get lucky and you sell it to a legit single owner. Maybe that comes along. Otherwise, it maybe gets sold off to a big conglomeration or something like that.
Okay. I think the fear is that because they can sell, AEG can sell, Anschutz can sell the whole company, AEG, as a whole to somebody. They'll say, come in, $5 billion, here you go. But then after the fact, they could say, you know what, this LA Galaxy thing, this soccer thing, it's not really our deal. We're going to go sell that to
That's my fear.
AB owner, some guy who, scrapes together a couple of bags of change around the corner. And next thing the things go downhill. The interesting thing for LA is whether or not A, the new owner wants the team, because like I said, could sell it off. And B, if they're willing to put the money into it, because I imagine that LA is still running at a pretty big loss, despite the fact that they've got the big names, despite the fact they draw pretty well, despite the fact they go on these tours. They're probably not bringing in a profit, and soccer clubs generally don't anyway. If you break even, that's good. You get the benefit out of the other things that are attached to it. So I think it's interesting to see what happens with the Galaxy. And yeah, I guess it's kind of, if this happens, when this happens, it's the end of an era. It is kind of the end of an era. And while you can say it's a security blanket, American soccer losing it, and we both kind of agree that MLS doesn't need it as much anymore. It's also American soccer, going from pull-ups to not needing that.
I like a frame of reference you and I are both familiar with.
Yes, but right.
From pull-ups to your underoos.
Yeah, maybe we wet the bed a couple of times, but we're growing up, and these things have to happen. And I guess it would have been fine if Phil Anschutz was involved in American soccer till the end of time, until he left this earth. But
dude, the guy's in his 70s now. I can understand him wanting to put an end cap on this a bit.
The other thing I will note, and I can't let this go by without mentioning this, strictly from a uncomfortable political perspective. And I know that, not all soccer fans disagree with Phil Anschutz, and not all soccer fans agree with Phil Anschutz and his politics. It's just with MLS having gone through the whole boys, what am I blanking on?
Boy Scout?
Yes, Boy Scouts. Having gone through the whole Boy Scout situation and how uncomfortable that was, while also being at the forefront of a movement to get homophobia out of culture in general, but soccer in particular. It would be nice not to have that contradiction of Phil Anschutz being such an important player still in American soccer. We'll always have the legacy. He'll always have a debt of gratitude to Phil Anschutz, but we won't have that issue hanging directly over our head. While MLS is saying, homophobia, go away, Phil Anschutz is over here giving a bunch of money to groups that, want to convert people and do all that weird stuff that just makes me uncomfortable.
It has. Okay, so here's the thing. That rarely is the main talking point when people talk about Phil Anschutz and soccer in America. Does that mean he has spent enough money and made enough of a difference to the cause that we're willing to look past that other stuff?
Well, I mean, it depends on how comfortable you are with all of that. Whether or not you say I can forgive whatever else he does because of the soccer thing. I don't know. I mean, I think that's a personal choice. I have an uneasy piece with the fact that Phil Anschutz is a key figure in my favorite league and my favorite sport. I have an uneasy piece with it, but I just deal with it. I mean, maybe that makes me some kind of hypocrite if I think that the politics that he ascribes to are wrong, but it's just
I feel the same way when people talk about Rupert Murdoch. I mean, I love the fact that Fox Soccer Channel exists, that Sky Sports exists, but look, the evil at the top is kind of always makes me uneasy.
You know, and with the whole Chick-fil-A story this year, it's just one of those things. If you are going to boycott or avoid,
I love fried chicken, dude.
If you're going to boycott or avoid companies that are run by people who have politics abhorrent to you on either side of the aisle, you'll never go anywhere. You'll never do anything. You'll run into all this stuff that you want to love and you just can't because of political reasons. And you know, again, everybody has to come to their own personal piece about it, whether or not you can deal with the fact that there was this guy who gave a lot of money to MLS and put a lot of money and didn't get any of it back, put a lot of money into MLS and helped save a league, and at the same time was doing this other stuff. You just got to figure it out. All right, let's talk about these ratings, Jared. MLS on NBC. I mentioned on the Sunday show, I didn't watch it. I had other commitments.
You're part of the problem, dude.
Apparently I am also, but I'm not a Nielsen household, Jared, and I think that's the issue here.
Do you know anyone that ever has been? Do you really know anyone?
Maybe I have this vague memory that maybe I do, but it might have been like hearing something on the radio, somebody talk about having one in their house. I don't really understand. I mean, I understand how they could not collect the ratings. I don't understand how we can take that as an obvious indication of who's watching what, but at the same time, it almost doesn't matter. This is the system that exists. This is what advertisers buy into and believe. And as long as it's the system, it really doesn't matter how accurate it is, because it's bad for everybody. You know what I'm saying? It's equally bad across the board. NFL blows everybody out of the water, and I'm pretty sure it's accurate in, you know, that at least that it's accurate at least that that NFL is massive. We all know that, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to MLS, we want to look at this. It's a 0.4, by the way. I don't know what that translates to households. That's probably less than 500,000 households, something like that. It's bad. It doesn't look good. You put your marquee rivalry on network television, and it draws a 0.4. Now, I said on Sunday that this was up against. It was the lowest rated sporting event on network television during the week, I think. It was up against college football. College football is still big in most of the country. I imagine that most of Cascadia watched it, or you know, most of the soccer fans in Cascadia watched it. But it doesn't make up for the people in New York who aren't, the people in Atlanta who aren't, the people in Texas who aren't, the people in Chicago that aren't. And are MLS fans going to go follow this game to network television just because it's their league? We've established, right, that MLS fans are very locally focused, right?
Yeah, I would say that's correct. And I made this point on Sunday that what followed this game on NBC on my TV? An infomercial. I mean, that gives you an idea of what NBC's what time frame on that part of the day versus what they're up against, what their normal programming would be anyway. I don't want to make excuses for this. Obviously, it's a bad number. I guess I just don't care too much because I still feel that it was a good product. And from an MLS perspective and an MLS fan perspective, I'm more enthused by the fact that NBC got a lot of stuff right. That the fact that the numbers weren't there, I'm used to that as a soccer fan, I think.
Right. When
was the last time I was really enthused about MLS numbers anywhere? I never really have.
I try not to pay too much attention to the numbers because look, soccer numbers on television, American soccer numbers on television just aren't great. You get a European Champions League final on Fox, and it does fairly well because it's a Champions League final, because it's got the best, some of the best players in the world are involved, because these clubs have been around for 100 years, and even casual non-soccer American sports fans can look and see the word Chelsea on their television or Bayern Munich on their television and realize that that's a big club. That's the Notre Dame of English soccer. That's the New York Yankees of English soccer kind of equivalent.
Yeah. So what's the entry point of a Seattle versus Portland game? You know,
that's what I'm saying. I mean, I think if you can't get the general MLS fan because they just don't care because they're doing other stuff on a Saturday because they've got their own game they're getting ready to watch later on that evening, whatever, then you're not going to, the ratings aren't going to be there because a casual sports fan is just going to flip right by it. Just going to flip. I don't know that says a whole lot about the product because I think there's still a lot of sports fans in this country who either just don't get soccer or don't understand or don't want to give MLS a chance for whatever reason. And I'm tired of arguing with those people. And I'm not going to waste my breath. The league is doing fine. We just said the league is doing fine from a financial standpoint.
But what's the potential fallout from a broadcaster perspective?
I think that's the issue. And the only fallout I can think of that really worries anybody is whether or not it affects how MLS does with their TV contracts in the future. And they took a step up with this last contract just in terms of distribution and the quality of the program, but they took less money. And it's MLS as a TV product is still feeling itself out. It's still just
what I don't know is what does an average MLS broadcast on NBC Sports bring in? That's what I don't know. I'm willing to bet it's probably kind of on par with this. And I think the reason why the number is so low or why the numbers seem so disappointing is because it was on a network broadcast. Well, but at the same time, I think of MLS on NBC as a place I go to watch some soccer. I don't think of NBC as a network on Channel 4 in LA, what it is here, as a place where I tune in for soccer on the weekends. And I'm sure there's an identity problem there.
It's possible. I think it also, it kind of brings us to the issue of whether or not MLS should be focusing more on the niche, which is what Fox Soccer Channel provides, the niche network. Only soccer fans are going to go find it. Or if they should be trying to expand their reach to non-soccer fans, casual, regular sports fans on an NBC network, NBC Sports Network, and ESPN and that kind of thing. Whether or not they can get traction surrounded by all those other big sports, and I do think that's a real issue when you have college football and pro football and baseball and everything going on at the exact same time. Makes it difficult for MLS to stand out, and that I don't think that says anything necessarily about MLS. It just says something about the state of. Still the state of domestic soccer here. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll figure out something else to talk about. Let's talk about PN Sudenhagen maybe. Peter Novak's lawsuit is interesting. Jason Davis, Jared Dubois, Best Soccer Show, NASN.TV.
Soccer Made in Portland airs Tuesdays and Fridays on the North American Soccer Network.
Get your weekly Portland Timbers fix with interviews, analysis, and the latest team news with Kelly McLean and Michael Orr.
Every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, we'll break down the previous weekend's game.
And then again on Friday afternoons, join us at 3:30 p.m. Pacific for the last word before the game as we preview the Timbers' upcoming opponent, including interviews with some of the best soccer journalists from around the country.
That's Soccer Made in Portland, live twice a week at NASN.TV.
Hey guys, the North American Soccer Network says we have to give them 30 seconds about what our show's like.
Surely we can accomplish this in 30 seconds, right? I mean, that's what we're good at.
Shouldn't be difficult.
Brevity. We need brevity.
I think that's a key. I think somebody should spell the name too. It's like it's a C. C-U-J. Yeah, there you go.
C-U-J-U. Yeah,
you got it.
R-A-D-I-O.
Thank you, Richard. Really much appreciated. Yeah, Radio Suju on the North American Soccer Network and on NASN Radio.
I'm Garrett Cleverly, co-host of MLS in 30 with John Arnold. Check us out every Tuesday and Friday as we break down the latest in MLS. We bring in the best beat writers throughout the nation, the guys that know the teams better than the teams know themselves. We also go over the best blank of the week and best blank of the weekends, and we break down the latest hot gossip, which is usually just typical MLS news. Check us out every Tuesday and Friday, only on NASN Radio. Now back to more NASN programming.
Together they formed a band whose names and deeds were to be retold throughout the centuries.
Every week, the Knights of the Supporters Shield, four of SB Nation Soccer's best American soccer writers, Jeremiah Oshant, Kevin McCauley, Ryan Rosenblatt, and Zach Woosley, assemble at the round table to analyze the latest news and events from around Major League Soccer. It's informative, it's entertaining, it's biased demagoguery at its best. It's the Knights of the Supporters Shield, and it's only on the North American Soccer Network and NASN Radio.
Back on the Best Soccer Show, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV, NASNradio.com, where we are streaming quality soccer programming 24 hours a day, and all of our live shows end up there as well. Fantastic outlet for American soccer fans. Should probably do a score check in the middle of a bunch of games. Sporting Kansas City beats New York, which is a big win for Sporting Kansas City on the road. Was that New York's first home loss of the year, Jared? Was that a 2-0 final there? Puerto Rico and LA have kicked off in the second half. Do we have a score? No score there?
0-0 still there, and 0-0 in the other game as well as Columbus Chivas.
Columbus Chivas 0-0 there. How are the kids faring in Puerto Rico?
It's holding. I mean, I'm kind of watching over my shoulder here and there when you're talking, and I act like I'm listening. I'm kind of watching, and for the most part, it looks like it's pretty sloppy. The ball's in the air a lot, not on the ground as much as I'd like, but the guys are getting it done.
Well, plenty of hope still. 0-0. Haven't fallen behind. Managing to keep a clean sheet at this point. As I mentioned, Maratone and Seattle at 10 Eastern. Keeping me up late for CONCACAF Champions League action. I do want to talk about the change at the top of the U.S. women's national team. Pia Sundhage leaving the team, going back to Sweden. I'm not sure I completely got the situation in terms of, was she offered a contract? Was it not good enough? Did she just say, I want to go home? What happened? And why the I mean, look, maybe she's won whatever she wants to win and it's time to go. Is that the issue here?
I think I don't know. I from my understanding is that obviously I haven't heard of obviously if U.S. Soccer made her offer as well, but I get the feeling that she's the type of lady that likes things to be new and fresh in her life. I think she's the type of person that's very passionate, and I think going back to and coaching in Sweden is kind of a good way to put a bookend on her career a bit, and kind of go back where it all started for her. And I think it keeps it fresh for her, and it's a new challenge. I think she's the type of person that needs that. That's that's how I see Pia Sundhage as a personality, is the type of person that kind of needs that kind of freshness. So what I'm worried about from the US's perspective is, what's the identity of this team now? I feel this team was so infected with the way her personality and the way that she lives her life in a good way. I mean that in a good way because I think the passion that she puts out there so openly and so on her sleeve. I think the U.S. really encapsulated that.
So is there your fear is that no matter who they get to come in next and take over, that they'll take a step back, at least in terms of the energy level and the passion of it? I mean,
the X's and O's may be better. I think you and I have both said that a lot of teams in the women's game, like France and Japan, they're moving on. They're going to a new style. They're going to a possession-based style, a much more cultured style, you could say. But the U.S. has always gotten results with the way that they play, which is a little more long ball, bypassing midfield more, and stretching the field. Right. Will the next coach make that step? Sooner or later, it seems like when Abby Wambach can't go any longer, and she's committed to another Olympic cycle, she said. But if they have to change at some point, who's going to be the coach that's going to either say, we're going to keep playing this style or move the way the rest of the world's going?
Okay, look, from when we talk about American soccer and the issues at the youth levels and the way the game is taught and played, I will agree that, long ball and Route 1 soccer is just not the way to go for developing players. But at this level, I'm really just playing a devil's advocate here, but bear with me. For the U.S. women's national team, they know what they're good at, right? And you mentioned Abby Wambach, and maybe, not having a target forward come in right after Abby will change the way they have to play. But what is it about moving to this cultured, it's all Barcelona. It's everybody trying to be Barcelona, right? That's what this is. Everybody wants to be Barcelona. Everybody wants to become possession tiki-taka teams. Like that is intrinsically more. There's more credibility in playing soccer that way. Does it show off more of your skills on every touch of the ball? Yeah, okay, it does. And I'm not going to disagree that it can be effective and it can be very beautiful to watch. But if the United States is better playing one way, why is it necessarily important for them to shift to something completely different?
Only because you don't know because I'm not sure you can continue to play that style once the essential component of what allows you to do it is gone.
Develop another Abby Wambach. I mean, I know she's once in a lifetime.
That's easier said than done.
No, I understand that, but there's got to be. Okay, so are we talking about changing the system to fit the players? Or are we just talking about changing the system for the sake of changing the system because everybody else?
It's the same thing we talk about with the men's team. Klinsmann talks about playing a certain style, but the physical limitations he has of the players within his pool force him on a game-to-game basis to play something totally different than what he says he wants to do.
Just because you don't have Abby Wambach as a backstop doesn't mean you can't still play the fast athletic style that the American women are known for. It doesn't preclude them from playing a way that is not Barcelona-like, not Japan-like. You mentioned them, and obviously they've kind of created this new stylistic movement in women's soccer because of their World Cup win. But my question isn't necessarily about whether or not it's a good idea for the United States women to change their style and whether the next coach will. Maybe he or she will. I don't know. My question is it absolutely necessary? Is there something like some validation? Does it make them
necessary? It's not necessary, but I think that if you make that change at some point, you are less, I would say, reliant on the fact of who your players are versus everyone can learn that style. Everyone can pass the ball or learn to pass the ball. Not everyone can learn to be close to 6 foot and big and bulky and hold a ball.
But don't you think in the short term it's easier to replace one player than it is to teach 8 players how to pass the ball around like Japan is doing?
But then you're putting all your eggs in the basket of hopefully finding that one player.
But if you change to the style you're suggesting, you're putting all your eggs in the basket of teaching players how to play differently.
I think that it's a lot easier to find 11 players in all of America that can pass the ball versus finding that one player in America that can be Abby Wambach's size and strength.
Okay, but producer Trevor gets to the heart of it. It's a prettier basket. That's why everybody wants to go to it. It's prettier. I get it. It's prettier. It's nicer soccer. I understand. Does it give you a better chance to win? Would it give the United States women a better chance to win? Forgetting the Abby Wambach factor for a second, because she says
I can't forget the Wambach factor.
But she's saying she's going to stay through another cycle. So you've got a head coach change coming in right now. Is the next head coach? Is it important for that next head coach to start a style change right now?
I think it's not important to make a wholesale switch to it. I think you start grooming the next group. You have 4 years to to start asking the question, what is this team's identity going to be in 4 years? Okay, I think that's where the next question, and then you start slowly integrating and finding those players that can play those roles, and maybe you start changing the process slowly over the next 4 years, and you can always revert back to the classic number 9 style of play if you need to.
You can always, I understand. Look, it goes back to the way that the situation with the men's program and what Klinsmann is quote unquote trying to do versus what he's actually doing. This is not going to be a light switch moment. This isn't going to be, okay, now we're this team. We still got the same guys. We still got the same players, but now we're this kind of team. Let's just go out and do it. It doesn't work that way. As you mentioned, it's got to be a slow change. We're talking about changing U.S. soccer culture at the very lowest levels in order to affect change when those players grow up and become national.
I think it's also we're saying when we compare what Klinsmann's trying to do versus what the next coach or whoever is going to be in charge of U.S. women's soccer in the future is going to do. The women's soccer still have some of the most talented players in the world to try to make this change with. Sure. You cannot say the same thing for the U.S. men's national team in making that same switch. They don't have the elite players of the world trying to make this change along with them.
But I could also argue that the U.S. women are more entrenched and more comfortable playing the way that they've been playing as a unit. They play way more than the men. They play way more games together than the men do. they are more entrenched in their style of play.
I'd say that's fair, because do you think Italy's going to change their style of play to fit what Spain does? No, Italy's great at playing defensive football, and I don't think they're ever going to change that. That is the way Italy plays. So to a certain extent, I agree with you in that maybe the U.S. is, I don't say the Italy because the styles are different, but in terms of they have an adaptive style that is one of the few teams in the world on the women's game that has a specific style that is essentially associated with that country. Do you change that just for the sake of change? I get your argument there, but I'm still nervous that it hinges on one player far too much.
Okay, look, I guess the fear is that the world is passing them by, right? That's the fear. The Japans and the Germanys are passing them by, and they don't want to be stuck standing still and not evolving. But at the same time, just because it's how they've always played and they used to dominate doesn't mean they can't still be effective. The rest of the world is catching up. That's going to happen whether the United States women change anything or not. They're not going to keep that same gap. That gap existed. That gap existed because the U.S. in America, girls played soccer way more than anybody else in the world played, and that's why that gap existed. And now it's closing because all these other countries are finally saying, okay, yeah, go out and play. We're going to turn you actually into a team and see what can happen. And we're all kind of like just nervous about what that means. Does that mean that, and I'm just going to leave it as an open question, does it mean the U.S. women have to change? Does it? I don't know. I really don't.
I think the inherent fact is that if you're changing, you feel like you're still alive. You feel like you're still competing if you're changing. I agree with you, though. Does it necessarily mean that it's a good thing? Those are two different arguments, probably.
This is classic administrator stuff. If you're not changing something, if you're changing something, then you get less criticism than if you're not. Because if you sit still and don't do anything, people can point to that and say, all right, look, Japan's better than you now because you didn't change, because you didn't fix it, because you didn't get better, because you didn't blah, blah, blah. But if you're going through the process of changing things, it's a moving target. Oh, well, I mean, there can still be criticism. You made the wrong choices. This isn't the way we should be going. But at least people can say, well, at least we're trying something. We're not going to just stand here and let everybody else pass us by. We're going to try to be moving. My question is, can we be sure it's the right direction? This goes for both the men and the women. We can't be sure it's the right direction. You kind of have to, on blind faith, say, let's bring in a Klinsmann and see what happens. Let's, Pia leaves. Let's bring in somebody else and see what happens. Abby Wambach's going to retire. Let's do this and see what happens. And nobody really knows if it's going to work out. And it's just the nature of sports, I guess.
It's a big leap of faith. And I think American soccer fans, because we have this one thing we can point to in the women's game, say we're good at this, we're woeful to embrace any change in that, because it's the one thing we can point to, say we're successful here.
Sure, there's that. And look, I think in a lot of ways, the style discussion ends up being very black and white. It becomes, in a lot of people's mind, even though there are a lot of shades of gray in between, it's you either play like Stoke or you play like Barcelona, and there's no in between, and there's no room for variation. If you're not possessing the ball 65% of the time, then you're not doing good enough to become that team. And if you're lumping the ball forward to a big forward who knocks it down for your speedy strikers and midfielders, then you're playing quote unquote ugly soccer, whether you score goals and win games or not.
Listen, they got a medal around their neck.
That's what I'm saying. They got a medal.
They have a medal around their neck now, though. What I'm worried about is how do you get the medal around your neck in the future?
So if they don't change, if they don't evolve, does that make the gold medal not as important? Does it eliminate some of the?
Of course not.
I think that's the way that some people talk about this. Like it doesn't matter that the United States beat up on Mexico for a decade because they're not getting better now, and Mexico's got a bunch of a golden generation of talent coming through. Like, that invalidates everything the United States men's national team has done. That's my frustration at this point. Like because the United States played a certain way and the world is quote unquote moving on and advancing, despite the fact that everything is circular and all comes back around, then it's like you're not worthy of any respect at all. And I don't mean from outside. I mean from internally. American soccer fans who are so
soccer fans, they don't think they're worth anything anyway.
It's crazy. It kills me. You play to win the game. You play. I'm sorry. I'm quoting Herm Edwards here.
You say that, but I know that you hate that every game is a nail on the chalkboard. You're biting your nails the entire time you go through every game because the U.S. is going to play a bucket system where everything is on edge the entire time. True,
but I also recognize the fact that we are still in the infancy of developing our own talent. We got through on what I'm going to call it like a silver generation of college talent coming through all at the right time and playing very, very well together. And maybe that was an aberration and it can't ever happen again. We're changing the way we're developing players because we know that can't sustain. So we've got to wait until this system, until the changes that we're implementing bear some fruit before we can judge anything. You know what I'm saying? I can't get mad at the United States men's national team for squeaking out a win when it's the same talent they had, the same level of talent they had 5 years ago. 5 years ago isn't enough time to change the culture. That's all. All right, let's take a break.
I feel that.
I'm all hot now.
We need to talk about Peter Novak. I'm not going to let this go by without talking about Peter
Don't do
Novak.
that. Best Soccer Show, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. I like that. I came out of nowhere. Wasn't expecting it. Oh yeah, sorry. I gotta run commercial.
Soccer Made in Portland airs Tuesdays and Fridays on the North American Soccer Network.
Get your weekly Portland Timbers fix with interviews, analysis, and the latest team news with Kelly McLean and Michael Orr.
Every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, we'll break down the previous weekend's game.
And then again on Friday afternoons, join us at 3:30 p.m. Pacific for the last word before the game as we preview the Timbers' upcoming opponent, including interviews with some of the best soccer journalists from around the country.
That's Soccer Made in Portland, live twice a week at NASN.TV.
Michael freaking Arasco Fiscal!
Together they formed a band whose names and deeds were to be retold throughout the centuries.
Every week, the Knights of the Supporters Shield, 4 of SB Nation Soccer's best American soccer writers, Jeremiah Oshant, Kevin McCauley, Ryan Rosenblatt, and Zach Woosley, assemble at the round table to analyze the latest news and events from around Major League Soccer. It's informative, it's entertaining, it's biased demagoguery at its best. It's the Knights of the Supporters Shield, and it's only on the North American Soccer Network and NASN Radio.
Jason and Jared about to close out the Best Soccer Show live Wednesday night, September 19th, 2012. Day check. We were talking U.S. Women's National Team. We were talking, generally speaking, we were talking about shifts in soccer styles and cultures.
Well, if they're listening, if anyone out there is listening live tonight, you should know that the U.S. Women's Team plays tonight in about half an hour in Pia Sundhage's last game.
Pia Sundhage's farewell game. They did the whole tour. They're undefeated on the tour, right?
I believe so, and I think Australia tonight is the last one.
Yeah, they beat out Australia over the weekend as well, I believe. We wanted to touch on. Well, first let's do a score check because I know a couple of games still ongoing. Columbus scored on Chivas USA to take the lead in that game, 1-0. Is that right?
That's correct.
LA and Puerto Rico, still 0-0.
Donovan has come into the game now. I gotta say it's settling down for LA now.
Game changer, 65th minute. Donovan coming on. I would assume the Galaxy are imposing themselves. Despite the fact they haven't scored, I would assume they're having more of the ball and that kind of thing. And we know,
but it's like producer just said, it is kind of scrappy though. But dude, I want to get to my favorite part. This is what I'm going to call Pennsylvania Pollock Theater. Can we just call it that from now on?
Oh, are we allowed to?
It's my favorite edition of Pennsylvania Pollock Theater.
Oh dear God! All right, no, actually, you need one of these too. Yeah, you need one of those too. All right, so this is the Peter Novak situation. Do you need me to set it up here? Peter Novak is currently embroiled in a lawsuit with the Philadelphia Union over his dismissal from the team. There are a couple of new notes that came out from our friend Jonathan Tannenwald at Philly.com, and they're sordid. And they're ugly, and it's not nice, and it's a lot of accusations flying back and forth. The accusations against Novak include that he improperly benefited from deals, from player transactions, from player deals while he was manager, that he put player safety at risk by forcing players to play through injury or training them too hard. Denying them water, which is pretty bad stuff. You can't deny a guy. I'm sorry.
You can't deny a prisoner in jail water.
Exactly. Peter Novak, the warden over there in Philadelphia.
Oh, I like that now. Now I'm picturing him like the warden from Shawshank. That works for me.
That works. Well, I don't know. That guy's a little more buttoned up than Peter Novak, but sure, that I suppose that works. It's gotten ugly up there in Philadelphia between the two sides. And from what I've seen, people discussing this on Twitter, people with law degrees and such, which I do not have, the conclusion is that if Philadelphia and Peter Novak had a separation agreement, had something in place for the eventuality of his firing, none of this would be going on. There would be no lawsuit. There would be no accusations of, whether Peter's lawyers want to take it to a federal judge, and the Philadelphia Union think it should go to an arbitrator per the contract. And there's, it was almost inevitable if they didn't have some agreement that they had signed to say, all right, look, if we fire you, this is what we owe you. This is what you're getting, and we can part ways amicably, or at least, without all of this fuss. But it's just,
you know what I like about the whole thing, from what I've read from the Tannenwald stuff, which you can get is it at Philly.com, I believe, is where you get Tannenwald's story on this. What I love about it is that it seems like Peter Novak has been able to find a law firm that is as crazy as him, that is as entertaining as him. Like the emails, Tannenwald publishes the emails that are made public record now. The email exchanges going back and forth, they are just as over the top as I view Peter Novak. I mean, just back and forth. Yeah, they're talking about language that wasn't even ever used. I mean, it's crazy. You got to go out there and read this stuff.
But maybe it's just vigorous representation. If they're doing their job for their client, and maybe that requires them to act a little crazy, because I imagine Peter Novak's pushing them pretty hard to chase this to the end of the earth. That he wants his money. Now, you remember back when this all went down. Remember, there was a question of whether or not he applied for a job at Hearts in Scotland. Yeah. I think it was. There was, there were some questions in the immediate aftermath of his firing. There were some questions about whether or not he treated players poorly, and that's in here as well. Is that, I don't know. Do we buy that? Is that something that the union are throwing out? Just to have one on him?
I don't know if the union are throwing 10 different excuses out there, hoping one of them sticks, is worth enough to make their case for them, or they're all legit. And if they're all legit, how is Peter Novak even fighting this? And did you do the same thing I did when I read the part about the South American player transactions and benefiting from it? I started running down through my head, who are the possible players?
Right.
Yeah. I was thinking, is it Valdez? Is it Torres? I can't remember where they get Pajoy from. I mean, I'm thinking, which one of these guys is the potential for the guys that they made money off of?
Are we going to assume it's not? It doesn't have to be bringing him in. He could be getting rid of him as well. Remember, they let Mondragon go. And we were kind of like, why did they just let him go? What happened with Mondragon? Peter Novak signing off on all those deals. If Mondragon's going back to Colombia, and Peter Novak signing off on that, letting him getting out of his contract, I'm sure Mondragon wanted to go, but the union are under no obligation to let him go if he's got a contract.
Just because the guy wants to go doesn't mean that.
I'm not saying there is, but it immediately leaps to mind that maybe Peter Novak got a kickback for letting Mondragon go back to Colombia.
There's absolutely nothing to substantiate that, but because that rumor's out there that something happened, you start connecting these dots.
Yes.
You start connecting things that maybe you shouldn't connect, to be honest with you. But
look, we're laughing now, but this is bad for MLS, and this is bad for bad for Peter Novak, but it's bad for MLS. It does not look good that
it's bad for a 3-year-old team as well.
Yes, absolutely. It makes the union look like a minor league outfit. It does. I mean, look, there have been lawsuits in other sports. I'm not going to say that this is the first time it's ever happened, but considering where they sit in the perception of soccer in the country and in Philadelphia, they have a good fan base and people show up to that stadium. But they're second and third class citizens behind the Eagles and the Flyers and the Phillies and the 76ers. I mean, they're way down that pecking order. To have this happen, I mean, maybe it gets them in the news, and that's a little bad. Bad publicity. No publicity is bad publicity, but still. It's not nice. It's not happy. You don't want this to be happening.
No, and if you're John Hackworth, are you happy because so little attention is on you right now? Or are you kind of mad because you're like, hey, I'm trying to do something over here. Let's pay attention to the positive things I'm trying to do over here and stop wallowing in the past.
They took off his interim tag. It seems to me like Hackworth is kind of not that he's not a good coach, but considering he was an interim coach coming in after Novak, he was on Novak's staff, it seems like kind of a give-up hire that they're saying, all right, look, we don't want to go through the whole process of finding somebody else. we don't want to spend any more money, perhaps. We're just going to give Hack a chance, and maybe he pulls it off. And speaking of that same thing, Paul, I don't want, you don't have a lot of time to get into it, but Paul Mariner's getting 2013 to prove himself in Toronto.
Which I think is the right call.
I know you agree with. I'm a little more skeptical about it, but fine. Give him a chance. He's got to deliver. I
Do you change coaches again, Jason? You can't change coaches again.
Look, I understand. It's difficult when you've made so many changes as Toronto has, and you've gone through so many head coaches and GMs. Eventually, you have to stand still for a little while just to see what you got and if you can make some progress. Because if you keep changing the leadership, you're just running in place because there's a new system every time and new players every time. It doesn't work. So I'm okay with them letting Paul Mariner have 2013. All right. We're going to wrap up this Wednesday night edition of the Best Soccer Show. Make sure you guys are on iTunes. Ratings and reviews help us out a lot. YouTube.com/Best Soccer Show. Facebook.com/Best Soccer Show. Jared, what else do the people need to know?
You can get us on Twitter at Best Soccer Show. And also, you can email us at show@bestsoccershow.com if you want to give us one of your takes on one of the topics covered tonight.
Absolutely. And voicemails at 201-430-2378 if you've got those. And just because someone asked on Twitter and I wanted to make sure I noted this, we will get on the staff and ourselves to get the website situation up and running and get you guys, all of you guys that sit in blogger stuff, we'll get answers to you in the very, very near future. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you on Sunday. Bye.